I certainly have. It's a natural marvel, born from ordinary atmospheric reactions, yet it looks like something straight out of a spellbook. Even with lightning magic existing in the world, the raw, scientific phenomenon itself fascinated me long before I ever wielded mana. Inside storm clouds, ice crystals swirl in turbulent currents, crashing into one another. Each collision transfers tiny, negatively charged particles between crystals. This buildup of opposing charges, negative in the cloud, positive on the ground, eventually reaches a tipping point. The tension forms a path of ionized air, known as a stepped leader, and then, lightning strikes. I once replicated that process using magic. I conjured a cloud and infused it with colliding ice particles. I even pre-charged the earth with energy, setting up the perfect conditions. All I needed was a spark to trigger the discharge. With a snap of my fingers, the energy surged downward, with Alphonse as the target. In theory, it was a flawless execution. In reality, it turned into chaos. The blast had been far greater than I expected. Lightning arced beyond the point of contact, cascading across the training field in uncontrolled fury. You have any idea what you've just done? Alphonse's voice thundered, his eyes seething with barely restrained rage. I knew I had miscalculated, something wasn't right. But I needed time to analyze it, to understand what went wrong. I messed up, I admitted, trying to keep my tone light. But at least I won, right? Before I could even finish my sentence, Alphonse's hand whipped across my face. Swat. Pain flared across my cheek, and confusion swept over me. Eh? I stared at him, stunned. Alphonse had struck me. Me. That hadn't happened since my reincarnation. The old man's glare grew even sharper. Why? My thoughts spun, a mix of shock and rising anger bubbling within me. Alphonse, that's enough. My mother Annabelle called out, rushing toward us. Don't blame Jared. I didn't do anything that bad, I told myself. It was an accident. No one was seriously hurt. But Alphonse wasn't done. I will blame him, he snapped. He needs to learn that his actions have consequences. What he did was reckless, unforgivable. That tone. I'd never heard him speak to my mother like that. His seriousness was unfamiliar, almost frightening. Why is he acting like this? I thought, fuming inside. I poured my heart into that spell. I even won our duel. Why is he treating me like a villain? It was just a small accident, I began again, teeth clenched. Shut it, boy. He barked. That small accident put your mother into mana shock. I froze. Mana shock. I echoed, my voice cracking. He nodded grimly. The spell you unleashed, whatever it was, would have consumed everything if she hadn't stepped in. She used / safe haven to protect you. Mana shock. I knew the condition, a sudden, uncontrolled drain of mana from one's core. It happened when a mage overexerted themselves without the proper channels or failsafes. In mild cases, it caused fatigue or unconsciousness. In severe ones, death. My eyes darted to my mother. She looked pale, frail, but I had assumed it was just her usual worry. She's been holding herself together to keep you from panicking, Alphonse continued, voice low but trembling with fury. And you don't even realize how close she came to collapsing. My stomach dropped. And no, you're wrong, I stammered. Why would she go that far? Are you dense? He yelled, stepping toward me, his aura flaring. Because if she hadn't, you'd be a charred corpse right now. A cold realization settled over me. I messed up. And far worse than I had imagined. My mother must have cast the strongest defensive spell she could muster, an advanced tier barrier, to contain the lightning blast and protect me. She had acted on instinct, not caution, and paid the price with the recoil of mana backlash. But, the lightning wasn't that overwhelming, I protested weakly. An intermediate barrier could have absorbed the charge. You didn't need to use a high-tier spell. Even with all her eccentricities, I knew Annabelle wasn't lacking in magical knowledge. She understood elemental reactions, counterbalances, everything. So why? Why would she risk so much when simpler solutions existed? Why would she? I wasn't thinking, Jared, my mother whispered, her voice rasping with strain. You were in danger. I had to protect you, no matter what. She coughed violently, and I watched her body tremble. Her skin was pale, her breath shaky. There was no mistaking it now, she was in serious condition. She won't die, but she'll be bedridden for a while. My thoughts fragmented. Logic spiraled into chaos. I thought I had everything planned, every detail calculated. But now? Still thinking about magic, aren't you? Alphonse's voice shattered the haze in my mind, loud and accusing. Anger flared in me. What now? I was already beating myself up. What more did he want? I raised my eyes to glare at him, but stopped short. Alphonse was crying. The man who moments ago had slapped me with fire in his eyes was now fighting back tears. Look at your mother, Jared. Look around you, what do you see? I turned my gaze around. Servants, maids, the staff, everyone was staring at me. Not with blame. Not with hatred. But with fear, concern. Worry. Not one of them cared about the scorched floor or ruined furniture. All eyes were on me. Do you get it now? Alphonse asked, voice thick with emotion. You almost got yourself killed. You nearly killed your mother. That blast could have swept away everyone here. And yet, his words weighed heavily on me. My chest tightened. Yet, despite it all, everyone is still worried about you. Your mother didn't hesitate for a moment. She risked everything to save you. And what are you doing? Still obsessing over your spellcraft? Still lost in theory while people around you suffer? Suddenly, something else struck me, something I had overlooked until now. He's injured. Blood seeped through Alphonse's shoulder. His robes were stained crimson, yet he stood tall, unwavering, focused entirely on me. A sharp ache pierced through me. My heart pounded, throbbing with guilt. My mother's weak smile. Alphonse's tears. The expressions of everyone around me. It all came crashing down. My voice trembled, and before I realized it, tears streamed down my face. It didn't matter how old my soul was or how many lifetimes of knowledge I carried. In this moment, I was just a child, lost, ashamed, and overwhelmed. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. My voice broke as I cried openly. I am so sorry, Heek. I sobbed uncontrollably, the words garbled, my pride crumbling to dust. My carefully constructed composure shattered completely. Without saying a word, Alphonse stepped forward and pulled me into a firm embrace. His large hands wrapped around my trembling shoulders. My mother, still weak, reached out and joined the embrace. And in that moment, we stood there, united. A family. Their warmth surrounded me, muffling the chaos in my mind. In that embrace, I felt the weight of my guilt slowly lift. I've been such a fool, making the same mistakes I once swore never to repeat. I smiled bitterly through my tears. In my previous life, I was surrounded by people like this. People who supported me, believed in me, carried me. I never became the great sage, Lewis Griffith, alone. And even now, after being given a second chance at life, I had once again chased power at the expense of everything else. That was my true mistake, not the spell, but forgetting the hearts that beat around mine.
Hey, welcome to Firescale Audiobooks. If you enjoy our audiobooks, please consider subscribing to the channel. Also, feel free to share your review in the comments section below.
It's a good thing you've learnt your lesson, Jared. I'm so proud of you, by the way. That spell of yours, it was amazing. My mother slurred, finally giving in to her exhaustion. Her eyes closed and she fell asleep. My tears, which had ceased, flowed once again. Somehow, what she said made me genuinely happy. Mother Annabelle, even though I'm an old man and this makes things a little awkward for me, you're such a great woman. I wept internally. The servants that held unto her made sure to support my unconscious mother's weight and carried her away from us, taking her to her chambers. They nodded respectfully at us, and Alphonse gave them a wave of approval, dismissing them to do the needful. But he's injured too. Hey Alphonse, your shoulder is dash. He raised a finger, interrupting my protest. Shaking his head, he gave me a stern look, once again meaning business. I felt a resolute expression emanate from my tutor's demeanor. Jared. Indeed, you surpassed my expectations today, and it's no secret to say you won the bet. He began, kneeling down to meet my gaze at an even level. Even though I felt bad for the damage and destruction I had caused, as well as the harm I brought unto everyone, Alphonse's praises felt good. But, as your master, I'll have to tell you this. No matter how much magic you eventually possess, or the heights you reach in the art, without anyone by your side to share it with you, it's naught but a vain pursuit. Those words hit me like a sledgehammer, resonating within my soul. They felt familiar. I had heard them before, in my past life. Yes, from one of my old acquaintances. He had told me the same thing. How does Alphonse know about that? Remember this, dear pupil. Magic is meaningless without people. That's your final lesson from me. Alphonse grabbed my hand and gave me a warm smile, then raised his second hand and rubbed my head, giving it a light pat. I was also impressed by your spell today, Jared.
Well done.
You have impressed me, not just as a tutor, but as a fellow magic user. My eyes bulged in shock as I received those words. I somewhat understood what Alphonse had just told me, as well as the words of my friend back then. No matter the height I would eventually reach in magic, it could never compare to the feeling of accomplishment I got from Alphonse that day. The warm sensation within me, and the tingly feeling welling up inside me. I felt really happy. So this is it, a true feeling of accomplishment. I beamed, returning Alphonse's smile. Such warm feelings of satisfaction would only be gotten from someone else. And as such, I needed others. What a valuable last lesson you gave me, Alphonse, I smiled. However, despite the bliss and fluffy magical bursts of joy flashing around, there was no way anything or anyone could make me forget. But Alphonse, you haven't forgotten the deal we made, right? Yeah, I know that he was trying to pass a message across to me, and to be honest, he was really cool. I truly learned a great deal from his words, and I had the resolution to change.
However,
Alphonse, you still haven't made good on the bet, you know? My special magic spell, where is it? What the dash? The old man gave me an unbelieving look as he stared at me. Am I being too impatient again? It's just that he said that's my last lesson, so I have to make things clear. That's not the wrong thing to do. You little rascal. Get the hint, will you? Alphonse said, knocking my head as he spoke. Alphonse, when did you start resorting to violence? I asked, wincing at the slight beating he gave my head. As someone whose body wasn't used to pain, it was an odd sensation. But it wasn't like I could complain. I had caused more pain to others, after all. The both of us burst out in laughter, filling the tense air with the friendly environment I had grown to love. Of course, I haven't forgotten our bet. Alphonse finally said, interrupting my thoughts. He stood from where he knelt and looked at the devastated training field. A small smile formed on his face. However, looking at what just happened, I doubt there's any magic in your level that I can teach you.
What? Come on, man.
Don't try to run away from this. Take responsibility. My mind rang. I wasn't being insensitive. This was my right. It was something I had been looking forward to for so long. As much as it was nice being commended by Alphonse and my mother, I needed something concrete as a trophy for my accomplishment. Don't worry though. Before the end of today, I'll make sure to make good on my word. Upon hearing this, it finally dawned on me. Why hadn't I thought of it earlier? Alphonse had been staying with us for 5 years straight, not missing a single day in teaching me magic. As per the contract, today would be his last time here before heading back home. Wow, you're really leaving tomorrow, my voice trailed. I now felt a tinge of regret coupled with my emotion. He was a great man and an interesting magic tutor, but did I even get to know him more than that? Even after so long had passed, I didn't really know anything about Alphonse. Don't make that look. It's not like I'm going to die, or anything. Besides, since you passed, you'll soon be going to the Magic Academy, right? Our separation was inevitable. The old man smiled at me. Shame on you, Jared. You're being reprimanded and comforted by your junior. I smiled to myself. You're right. Thanks, Alphonse. Now then, why don't we go inside? They should have laid Annabelle on her bed. We should check her condition. Alphonse said. I nodded. While Anna wouldn't die, she would be in a state of weakness for some days. I'll offer some treatment, so she'll be able to get up before you leave for the academy. So you don't need to worry too much. Alphonse smiled, noticing my troubled expression. Am I so easy to read? Oh boy. And so, former master and pupil returned to the manor, after having reconciled with each other. Oh, by the way, what about my special dash? You little. I said I haven't forgotten. You know what? Come to the courtyard after dinner, and I'll show you before you sleep. Alphonse barked, already growing frustrated with my reminders. Haha, sorry. Thank you, I responded. I think I should shut up now. Alphonse and I entered my mother's resting chambers, a very large and elaborate room. The scent-filled fragrance of roses and delicious nectar made me smile in pleasure as I walked in. There she was, Annabelle, laid on her bed in her sleeping state. She was so beautiful, and for the first time, she seemed fragile. Almost like a sleeping beauty. Get me some sage, Kadan potions, red lotus, tiagong, and FYR. They should all be labeled in the greenhouse. Alphonse ordered the servants within the room. The two of them instantly nodded, rushing out to fetch the ingredients he mentioned. Using mana to help her won't help in this instance since mana is the problem. All we can do is feed her medicine so her body stabilizes on its own. Any insertion of foreign mana will only make things worse, Alphonse whispered, as though speaking to himself while analyzing everything. I just kept looking at him the whole time, not knowing what to say. The way he took charge of the situation, plus the maturity he displayed. I could chalk everything down to experience. My eyes, however, suddenly darted back to the injury he had, which made me a little worried. He was also in a bad shape. But Alphonse, are you in any shape to do anything? Your shoulder is I spoke out in concern. Alphonse's eyes lit up as he looked at the bloodied shoulder he had. He most likely got the injury from the sharp sparks of lightning running wild after he saved me. So he prioritized speed over defense in order to rescue me, leaving himself wide open. I felt even more guilty now. Perhaps it was too much to have asked him to give me my final lesson at the time. However, to my surprise, Alphonse didn't express any concern about his injury. He placed his hand on his shoulder, and a green light hummed around it. The spreading blood ceased and the wound he had closed instantly. Healing magic.
I beamed. How could I have forgotten?
Alphonse was a seasoned mage. Of course he knew how to use it. I forgot about that injury for a second there, thanks for reminding me, he said, shrugging it off as if the blood he shed was nothing. For him to have discarded such a blow as nothing, just what kind of man was Alphonse? I see. My lips curled awkwardly as I let out a short laugh. Alphonse used magic to create a bowl and grinder, using earth magic to mold the simple objects. He also prepared water, heated it with fire magic, and steam began to form. The servants appeared and brought the ingredients, making him thank them as soon as he saw the items he requested. I watched from the side as he chopped down the lotus, burnt the sage, and prepared the other herbs in specialized ways. The Kadan potion was added to the boiling water, turning everything into powder. Amazing. So this is modern medicine? I beamed in surprise. Back in my day, once a person experienced mana shock, they were given time to rest so that their body would naturally restore itself. There was no medicine to speed up the process. This is incredible. I smiled, watching Alphonse's precision in combining the ingredients. At this point, the medicine was ready, having the form of a thick pink liquid. The red lotus must have contributed greatly to its color. I suppose this is the first time you've seen anyone make medicine, Alphonse said, upon noticing my smile. I nodded eagerly. Well, this is usually the job of a doctor or alchemist, but since I learned some while studying magic, I know a little about medicines in relation to it. I see, I blurted out, utterly amazed. Alphonse proceeded to my mother's bed, using wind magic to carry the liquid and give her the right dosage in tiny droplets so it would be easy for her to swallow. In a few seconds, he completed the dosage, leaving a good deal within the bowl. I'll tell you the dosage you'll constantly give to her before I leave. So, even after I'm gone she'll be on this medication and in a few days, she'll be perfectly normal. Alphonse said, looking at me as well as the other servants.
Thank you, Alphonse. I beamed.
The servants also thanked him profusely, bowing their heads in respect. That's all right then. Now that the worst has passed, you should all go and rest.
He smiled kindly.
But our madam is still one of the maids voiced out in protest.
That's fine.
It's nothing, really. You can call in a new batch of servants to replace your post, so you can go freshen up. Realizing that they couldn't argue with Alphonse, the two servants nodded and excused themselves. Jared, you should also rest. You must have exerted yourself a great deal after using that spell, Alphonse said, looking at me with concern. I understood his perspective. I was only a little child with a white mana core. Not only had I spammed a bunch of spells with different elemental attributes, but I also created such a destructive phenomenon. It was only natural that I would be exhausted.
However,
I'm not really tired, Alphonse.
I'm fine. Really, I replied.
Alphonse seemed to distrust my words, so he narrowed his eyes to observe me closely. His eyes bulged in surprise, meaning he noticed that I wasn't in any poor shape. How is this? Wow, amazing. Once again, you've flustered me, Jared.
Alphonse grinned. I aim to please.
Using 3 mana cores had its benefits, one of which is mana management. I can save up a lot of mana by using the cores to charge one another. Also, while I use a core for magic, the other core absorbs the mana particles within me. Since I can somewhat control the flow of mana in my body after years of practice, I can fill up my mana cores easier than others. Also, if I had used SBLLCRAFD, mana wouldn't have even been an issue. That lightning attack, it wasn't anything a young magic user should be able to use. Even yellow core users can't produce such an effect. Yet with a white core you did it, and you're not even exhausted. Fascinating, Alphonse muttered, rubbing his chin as he spoke. The old man was playing coy. Who knew there was this side to him? I mused. He was speaking in circles, but I knew what Alphonse was getting to. Do you want to know how I did it? I asked with a sly grin. What are you dash? He burst out, trying to hide his curiosity by masking it with annoyance.
He couldn't fool me though.
I might be a child now, but I was once an old man too. You can't use your tricks on me. Plus, I was a very curious fellow in my past life, and I still am, so I used many methods to extract information from people back then. Many of the means that I used were crafty strategies and acting. Compared to me, Alphonse's attempt to hide his motive was at the level of a noob. Never underestimate the power of shamelessness. I can tell you though, it's not a big deal for me. I simply used basic magic spells and combined them in a way that produced that result.
Alphonse was stunned, but he composed himself. If I was to tell him something so important, he would have to become the student. After all, he said it himself. He no longer considered me his pupil, but a fellow magic user. Please tell me more, Alphonse asked with a resolute face. Why not? Of course, I didn't tell him about the fact that I had 3 mana cores, or any of my well-guarded secrets. The only thing I did was explain the concept of lightning, and how it was achievable through the right combinations. Though it helped that I had 3 mana cores, since I was able to complete the process much faster, anyone could recreate such a phenomenon if given enough time. Amazing. Alphonse kept beaming as I spoke. However, the more I explained it, the more I couldn't understand the hole in my theory. It should have been perfect, yet it went out of control. Am I missing something? I had thought to myself. Well, if that was the case, I simply had to dig deeper. There was no way I would settle for anything less than perfection. And so, with this resolve, I went to my room and got enough rest, preparing for the spectacular show I would be seeing this night. To pass the time, I practiced a little and went over some of the things I had learned, while also writing down the process of making the mana shock medicine. It could come in useful, I thought to myself. Before I knew it, night fell, and it was time for my appointment with Alphonse. I left my room and went to the destroyed courtyard, anticipating the show. Apparently, Alphonse was more excited since I met him there already waiting for me. Oh, you're here. Just in time. Alphonse grinned upon noticing my presence. Good evening. It's nice to see you're keeping your promise. I smiled at the wry old man. Look at this brat. What do you take me for? Alphonse laughed. I also joined in the merry laughter, grateful that the little awkwardness of the past had vanished entirely. Well, since we don't have much time, we might as well get started now. I nodded, moving close to him. We were standing at the center of the crater my berserk spell had caused, making me wonder what Alphonse had in mind. Remember what I told you this afternoon? I doubt there's any basic magic that I can teach you at your level. Alphonse began. I knew it would come to this, my mind trailed. I had far surpassed any basic magic regiment he could think of. Plus, he also couldn't teach me more advanced magic since I didn't have enough mana capacity to handle them. At this point, he was at an impasse. Your growth rate is phenomenal, so I thought of something different entirely. Upon hearing this, my eyes widened as I looked at his face. Why don't I bypass all the levels you need to reach and go to the very pinnacle of magic? The highest level mage can achieve, since that is the place you desire to stand. Alphonse smiled at me. He must have sensed my impatience and eagerness. To have come up with something like this, my ex-tutor Alphonse, was simply amazing. Pinnacle of magic, this is. I instantly forgot about all the worries and anxiety that enveloped me. If he was talking about what I thought he was, then I was about to see something truly amazing. It's too much for someone at your level, and we don't even have enough time for you to learn it. As you know, our period of training is officially over. Finally, it is something exclusive to me alone, so this isn't what anyone else can perform. However, so it's exactly what I'm thinking about. Perfect. My mind rang. This was even more than I expected. It was the highest level of magic a mage could achieve. It signaled the maturity and growth of a magic user, as well as their resourcefulness. The combination of both mana capacity and research. Original magic. If it's you, Jared, then surely you'll be able to learn something from my little demonstration. Alphonse smiled. Of course. At my level, it would be impossible to make my own original magic, plus,
I couldn't imitate his since the magic he would show me was something he had developed from scratch. However, the point of this demonstration was something else entirely. To see original magic up close, and to learn how it is made. Something like that will boost my knowledge of magic principles even more and allow me to see how far this world has progressed compared to the past.
Now then, let us begin, Alphonse smiled.
Watch and listen closely, Jared. I'll only show this to you once, so burn it into your memory. I hope it will help in your own research and the creation of your original magic. You don't have to tell me twice, old man. I stared in absolute concentration. My true, final lesson was about to begin. Take very good care of yourself and your mother, Jared, Alphonse said, already in the carriage. It was the next day already, and Alphonse was leaving the manor. He had very few belongings to begin with. Perhaps there was some sort of magic tool in his possession that allowed him to stuff many of his properties in one large traveling bag, since that was all he brought, and it lasted him 5 years.
I will.
I loudly responded, smiling at the old man as he stuck his head out of the carriage window. He gave me a slight nod, and I nodded back, remembering the promise we made the night before. The many waves of darkness that filled the area dispersed, and finally, a semblance of normalcy returned. Wow. I managed to stutter after experiencing original magic for the first time in this life. Words couldn't describe the sensation that coursed through me at the sight of Alphonse's beautifully dangerous power. I was right in believing him to be strong. Original magic sure takes a lot out of me. Alphonse huffed as beads of sweat appeared on his face. It was understandable, since one needed an immense amount of mana pool, mana knowledge, and mana control in order to pull something like that off. Alphonse saw my stunned gaze and suddenly felt proud of his achievement. He was always so petty. So, what do you think? I glanced at the grinning face of the old man as he expected an answer from me. I didn't even know where to begin. The concept, the execution, the conclusion. They were all impressive. I certainly learned a great deal from this.
Thank you for showing me, Alphonse.
I'll be sure to put what I have seen to good use. I responded with a mature, good-willed smile.
I see.
Is that so?
Well, don't be too impressed.
There are way better original magic out there, and I'm yet to perfect mine too. It takes a lifetime to fully hone one's original magic, you know. In my mind, I could tell how shameless Alphonse was being.
For real?
Just take the praise and be satisfied already. I rolled my eyes. Of course, Alphonse's magic wasn't the best I had seen. In the past, I had encountered many mages and had researched their skills. I was even acquaintances with a few grand mages, and close friends with one in particular. Compared to theirs, Alphonse's was a little lacking.
However,
all magic is beautiful to me.
I don't discriminate.
Jared, can you promise me one thing? Alphonse's voice suddenly cut into my thoughts. I looked at him with curiosity and became a little stunned upon seeing his serious demeanor. It reminded me of earlier this afternoon. What is it? Promise me you'll keep yourself safe, no matter what. It doesn't matter when or what the circumstances are. It doesn't matter what needs to be forfeited. Keep yourself safe. Can you promise me that? Alphonse asked sincerely. Sure. I responded a little awkwardly. Shouldn't you say something like protect your mother and keep her safe, though? Upon hearing this, Alphonse burst out laughing. I stared at him weirdly, waiting for him to finally stop and fill me in on what was so funny. The old man placed his hand on my shoulder and his smile vanished instantly. A serious, well-shaded expression formed on his face. Jared, your mother, can take care of herself. Suddenly, memories of the past came rushing in. I recollected all the supplexes she had given Alphonse, and the violent nature she exhibited. Instantly my body stiffened, and I nodded mechanically to the equally terrified man. It appeared we had both been traumatized by that mother. There was also the fact that she was able to make the strongest advanced barrier magic so quickly, even though it resulted in mana shock.
Understood.
I gave him a thumbs up, and he responded with his as well. Finally removing his hand from my shoulder, Alphonse smiled and nodded proudly. You'll be leaving for the academy a week from now. While it's regrettable that I won't be around for your farewell party, I'll be sure to send my gift to you before your departure. My eyes beamed proudly at my master as I gratefully offered him my thanks. A gift from a magic user of his caliber, one who also served as my magic tutor, could only mean it was something magic-related. Maybe a magic tool? Suddenly drool appeared on my face as I obsessively considered what I would receive from my master. Ah, you're making that scary expression again. Alphonse yelped, drawing away from me.
Come on, master. Come and hug your cute pupil. I beamed, moving closer to him with my hands spread wide. Stay away from me. And that's ex-pupil to you. He replied, stepping back more desperately. Due to the power he exerted earlier in using his original magic, he was most likely exhausted. There was no way such an old man could fight back against the power of youth. Meaning, I can make good use of his weakness. Hee hee. Don't be shy, Alphonse. I grinned more widely, quickening my pace. Before we knew it, both of us were dashing across the destroyed field in a game of tag. We did this until we were exhausted and finally retreated to our separate rooms to get some rest. The next day came in the blink of an eye, and apparently, I had slept in. By the time I ran downstairs, Alphonse's luggage was already being loaded into the carriage. We said our final goodbyes, and he gave me the recipe and dosage for the mana shock curative medicine he used for my mom. This made me a little surprised since he only mentioned giving us the dosage. You seemed interested in the medicine itself, and I was making it too fast for your eyes to take note of every single process at the time, so I wrote them down for you instead. He kindly remarked. I was grateful for this, happily thanking him. Take care of yourself, Jared. I'm sure we will meet again soon. He smiled, nodding knowingly. I did the same, waving at him as the carriage started moving and his head retracted from the window. Goodbye, Alphonse, and thank you. I smiled. As I watched the carriage slowly vanish from sight, the reality dawned on me that I was finally a step closer to actualizing my dreams, and while there was a lot to be taken care of before then, it was still worth celebrating. Now then, I should start getting ready to take care of some loose ends. It was a rough week for every member of the household. With my mother in a comatose state, and my father currently absent, it was obvious that the manor was in a vulnerable state at that point. Realizing this, the chief butler and head maid made sure to compartmentalize information, making sure nothing was leaked to the outside world. More patrol duties were added to the guard schedule, and I was guarded using an airtight formation. My room was surrounded by guards and magic barriers when I slept at night. It was the same for my mother. They weren't taking any chances. I suppose it's a good thing in its own way. The maids kept giving my mother the medicine based on the prescriptions given by Alphonse, and I made sure to supervise every step of it. One could call me a doting child, but I made sure to check up on Annabelle once in a while. The remaining time was spent mostly studying and meditating. There was no point in practicing magic at this point since I had a lot of burning questions that only research could solve. My mother regained consciousness after 2 days of using the medicine, and finally, after 5 days following the incident, my mother was completely cured of mana shock. Of course, the first thing she did was to Jerry Eid. Annabelle screamed my name, plunging into me as she gave me a tight hug. My body was enveloped in her embrace as my face became buried in her massive boobs. Come on, woman. I'm a growing child. My mind rang as I struggled to maintain control. Due to my small size, she was able to easily overpower and carry me as if I was still a baby. Well, in all honesty, even if I was grown up, she would still be able to achieve that. After all, that time with Alphonse, I smiled nervously. I was relieved to see her up and well though, and so we engaged in heartwarming discussions. It was more of her asking me tons of questions, including what I had been doing during the time she was out of commission and how excited I was for the party holding soon. That's right. My send-off party. I had come of age and even passed my magic training with Alphonse. The other classes I had on etiquette and basic education had also been completed, so I was ready for the next step in my career. The Empire's Academy, Ainslark. In 2 days I would be leaving for this educational institute to start a new life and further the depths of my knowledge and experience in magic and advanced studies. I was looking forward to it. Still, before then, a party was due. After all, the only child of the Leonard household would be heading to the academy. It was a thing of celebration, and I was the central figure. When will it be held? I asked my excited mother. Tomorrow night, before the morning when you leave for Ainslark. She replied, giggling. Oh, I can't believe I'll be leaving so soon. This still feels so unreal. My mother sensed my excitement and patted my head with a proud smile. You know, due to your low aptitude and talent, Alphonse and I thought you should register as a scholar in the academy. She smiled. Of course, I knew that. Those two were scheming behind me with good intentions to ensure I at least put my high amount of knowledge and smarts to good use. However, you've proven yourself more than good enough to attend as a magic user. I'm so proud of you, my child. She proceeded to once again hug me, something I was already used to at this point. Surprisingly, this time, it wasn't the usual tight embrace.
Annabelle's hug was light and warm. I could feel her tremble slightly and break into a silent sob. "I'm so proud of you, Jared," she whispered. It made me remember my former parents. I did nothing but cause trouble for them and even looked down on them as a kid, since they had no magic. Yet, they always stuck by me. It was unfortunate that by the time I became a great sage and finally became acknowledged by the whole world, those two had already died. I often wondered to myself what they would have said if they were alive to see all I had achieved. My heart still aches thinking about it. I loved them so much, and it was clear that they loved me more. Would they have told me they were proud of me? Would they embrace me the same way my new mother did? Thank you for everything. I'm so happy I made you proud. I burst into tears as I said those words, hugging my mom back with my shaky hands. I didn't know if my words were wholly directed at just Annabelle, or also my dead parents in my past life. No, they were for both of them. This warm feeling I had within me, I was never going to forget it. Just watch, Annabelle. I'll make sure to become the greatest mage ever before you die. My mind rang as my hands rightly gripped her more. So don't die before then, okay, Mum? Before I knew it, the night of the following day had arrived. I was shocked beyond words by the sight before me. When I heard it was a farewell party, I had thought it would be one where my mom and the rest of the household ate and shared the night. To think it was something like this. Cheers to Jared Leonard, first son of the Leonard family. A thunderous multitude of voices boomed across the large hall where the party was being held. Countless people raised their glasses in cheers, many smiled and laughed. The number of people were more than I could count, some faces I recognized and others I had no idea of who they were. Was this my farewell party? No, it was a freaking. Strange faces, endless chatter, stifling air. Such were the things that permeated the environment I found myself in. To say I was shocked would be an understatement. This is, I mumbled, not knowing how to address what was meant to be my party. Do you like it, Jared? I made sure to invite everyone from our territory, at least, those who could make it. Annabelle, my diabolical mother, asked me. I wanted to give her a crude face and question her decision, but upon meeting her excited gaze and innocent smile, I decided against it. This woman. I gritted my teeth powerlessly. Of course, Mom. I love it. A kind, cheerful voice leaked out of my lips. Embarrassing as it was, I had to play the part. We had guests, after all. The guests we had numbered hundreds, but our large hall was more than enough to accommodate them. It took the shape of a ball or a standing party, where no chairs were in sight. Light meals such as cakes, sweets, and cookies were served. The sweet scent of their milky flavor wafted in the air, coupled with the strong and bold whiff of wine. Yes, alcohol. Of course, there was no way I would be given any since I was a child, but the temptation remained in my eyes. How long has it been? I licked my lips as I enviously eyed the geezers who fully enjoyed themselves in the sweet goodness of booze. I loved magic, but wine was also very close to my heart. Come now, Jared. We need to greet the guests. My mom dragged me along with her, moving towards some exquisitely dressed personalities. Here we go. Moving from one place to another, without rest, my mother and I showed our courtesy to the very important guests at the event. Nobles from other families, important stakeholders in my family's business, merchants, and several others. It was mentally exhausting to do the same thing over and over again. It's a pleasure to meet you, sir. Whatever your name is. I'm overjoyed that you could make it to this event. My facial muscles were already tired of the false smiles and repetitive greetings I gave strangers whom I hardly knew. Are you tired, Jared? My mother suddenly asked, snapping me out of my exhausted daze. Of course, I couldn't show weakness in front of her, so I stiffened up and gave her a warm smile, hurting my face even more. No way, I'm fine, Mo-. You don't have to pretend when it's just you and me, Jared. She interrupted my words. Her response stunned me. Want me to tell you a secret? Annabelle asked. Still stunned by her response, but curious about what she wanted to say, I nodded. She smiled, beckoning me to draw closer to her as she brought her face to my ears. To be honest, I'm tired too. Quickly retracting her face from my ears, I saw her wince and yawn, stretching her hands playfully. This made me burst into little snickers, turning into laughter in no time. Really? Mother too? Yep, I'd rather be in my room reading or cuddling you in my arms. She pinched my cheeks as she smiled. If this is so exhausting, why do we do it then? I asked, still chuckling while rubbing my reddened cheeks. It's unavoidable. Nobles etiquette and whatnot. But if you ask me, It's just an excuse for false interactions and building connections. I don't even know half of the people here.
Annabelle told me. Ah, for real?
I was surprised by this. I was no noble in my past life, so I didn't know anything much about their internal affairs. I had many noble acquaintances, but it wasn't like I was really interested in politics or the kind of life they lived.
Yeah. It's all pretense, you know?
Many of them are here to size us up, spy on us, or even try to curry our favor and build connections. It's all hypocrisy,
she said, sighing.
Welp, this is news to me. However, for this custom to have been passed down for generations, even back when I was still alive, it meant that no noble could avoid the shackles of pretense. Do you know why I'm telling you all this? Annabelle asked with a warm smile. If I had to guess, it would have had to do with the fact that I was a growing noble, and was soon going to go through something so exhausting in the future. It's so that you won't imitate your father and leave your wife all alone to handle things like this when you grow up.
Yeah?
I certainly wasn't expecting that. Looking at Annabelle's face, she appeared to be pouting.
Did she miss my father? Perhaps she was upset at him.
No matter what case it happened to be, it was still so very cute.
Ah, I need some air.
I think I'll be off to take a break somewhere.
You should do the same.
Let's meet up here in 5 minutes to resume the greetings. Annabelle said, quickly rushing away. I knew she was tired, but knowing how old and mature Annabelle was, she could put up with something like this for the entire night. She's most likely doing this in consideration of me.
How sweet of her, I mused.
I turned to the several high-standing tables and saw a couple of glasses of wine seated on them. A grin formed on my face as I swiftly blended with my surroundings and stole myself a glass.
Perfect, I whispered.
With no adult supervision, I was free to do what I wanted for a while. It's time to leave this place for a while. Stealing away from the crowd, I was certain no one noticed my exit. In a place with hundreds of people who had different motives, they were certain to miss a young boy holding a glass of wine. No, make that 2 glasses of wine, leaving the hall. I made my way downstairs, through the auxiliary passageway that only members of the household knew of. The main passageway was crawling with annoying adults, even the stairs, and I wasn't in the mood to greet them. Descending the stairs and making my way to the backyard, I made sure no one followed me. Upon getting there, I found that my spot had already been occupied by someone. She stood in a corner, also making an effort to be inconspicuous. A young-looking woman, appearing to be in her early 20s. However, that wasn't the most noticeable trait about her.
It was the uniform she wore.
She was a maid of my household, and I knew her. I waited a while since she appeared to be talking to herself for a few moments. I thought the wait would last forever. Finally, I couldn't wait anymore, so I decided to intentionally recreate loud footsteps in order to notify her of my presence. Instantly, she ceased her mumblings and stiffened as I made my appearance. "Why, young master?"
she remarked in surprise.
I smiled, nodding at her, with both glasses of wine held in each of my hands. She looked at my face with shock, her eyes fell to the 2 glasses I held, then turned to me again. "You won't tell on me, will you?" I grinned mischievously. "In no way be but, young master. I don't think milady will approve of you doing this. You're still underage, you know," she said in her sweet and flustered tone.
"No da.
You think I don't know that?" I rolled my eyes.
Come on, Liliana.
I'm a growing man, this much is to be expected. Magic isn't my only passion, you know. I responded, trying to use my smooth words to convince her. But, she muttered, looking away, as though considering what to do. Liliana, or as most of the maids called her, Lily, was one of the youngest member of the servants in our household. Not just when it came to years, but also in terms of service. Most servants had spent at least a dozen years in the household, but she had only spent about 5. She was still new and inexperienced compared to most, which made her personality easy to manipulate. "I hope you do not think of defying this young master," I said, suddenly switching my tone into something more aggressive tone. "Wa dash." She was now flustered, appearing a little scared. My lips curled up in an evil grin and I licked my lips, staring at her with degenerate eyes.
Eek. Oh, of course not, young master.
I promise not to tell anyone. She squeaked powerlessly. "Of course you won't," I said in a low tone, drawing closer to her. She attempted to take a step back the moment I was drawing near, but the intense gaze I gave her caused her body to tremble as she was rooted to the ground.
"Here. Have this."
Liliana looked surprised by my gesture. I gave her a cup of wine out of the 2 I held. "Why, young master, I dash." One extra glare from my eyes shut her up as she nervously collected the glass cup and looked at it in surprise.
Her body was still trembling, indicating she wasn't comfortable with this. Now, the both of us are with glass cups. This way, you can't tell on me or I'll also tell on you. Sounds fair, no? I smiled. Liliana widened her eyes in shock. The maid was apparently surprised by my diabolical means. Young master, you're so mean, she whispered, looking at the contents of the wine cup. Hee, of course not. I'm just playing it safe. Besides, this will also make you feel good, Liliana. I winked. As long as she didn't tell on me, her secret was safe. Plus, she would also get to enjoy the rare wine being served to the important guests we had. Wouldn't anyone call that a win? Now then, Liliana. Let's drink to our little secret. She nodded hesitantly, taking the glass of wine and sniffing it, testing it out with her tongue, swirling it around as it mixed with her tongue, and taking it down her throat in a refreshing manner. As I downed my glass, I curiously stared at her method of consuming the wine and smiled. Liliana, you sure are an expert at drinking wine. Are you sure this is your first glass? I grinned. Upon hearing this, the young maid became even more flustered and her cheeks reddened. Please, young master, don't tease me so. I just heard that this was how to take wine, and I dash. Pfft. I let out a snicker, amused by Liliana's reaction. Why, young master, what's so funny? She asked, innocently gazing at me. I kept laughing, while restraining my voice from peaking since I didn't want to gather any attention. It's nothing. You're just a very funny character. I smiled, still chuckling a little. Me? Funny? Young master is so mean. She pouted in a mock-angry fashion. Apparently, it was a rude thing to call a woman funny, and it appeared as though I was making fun of her nervousness. All things considered, she was still a maid, and I was the young master of this noble family. She was certainly in the right to be nervous in our entire discourse. It's not that I'm mean, Liliana. You're just too nice. I smiled. She was surprised by me saying this, and a slight blush appeared on her face. She was such a charming young lady. Beautiful, shy, mild, and extremely naive. Any man would want her just by her looks and personality alone, yet she worked as a maid. Why, young master, your praise is too much. I am not that nice. I'm just inexperienced, and dash. My grin became wider as she said this. No, you're really nice, Liliana, I repeated, interrupting her words. I stared at her with narrowed eyes, while having a dark smile on my face. The young maid looked stunned by my sudden change in expression, now looking more nervous. That is, when you're not trying to kill me. What are you talking about, young master? Liliana, the maid stared at me with confusion clearly written on her face. This act of hers nearly made me burst out in laughter, but I controlled myself. Now wasn't the time to be cheery. Oh? You're going to keep pretending, are you? I asked with a sly grin. Her eyes broadened in fear and shock at the sudden accusation I was rendering. The looks she gave could have easily won me over if I wasn't certain. Still, Liliana appeared determined to keep up the farce and pretend to be none the wiser. Unfortunately for the maid, no act could save her now. That was quite an interesting conversation you were having just now before I arrived, I muttered. This caused her eyes to bulge. I was having a wonderful time listening in. You didn't have to stop when I walked in, you know? I could sense a form of unease suddenly descend upon her. Even if I had accidentally accused her of attempting to kill me, the mere mention of her earlier conversation had already set it in stone. Why, you heard? Her hushed voice sounded as she bowed her head. Yeah, I did, your conversation with your employer. I heard it all. Moments earlier. Report your progress on the mission. A deep voice came out of a magic crystal that Liliana held. The young maid placed it close to her ears so she could listen in well, and also made sure it was close to her mouth to ensure she could respond with a low tone. There has been a slight change in plans. Due to an event that occurred 5 days ago, I saw an opportunity and took action. Liliana responded in a hushed tone. Oh? For you to have acted without receiving an order. That's very unlike of you, the voice responded. Liliana gave a dark smile. It was unavoidable. He surprised me, as well as everyone else who watched him on that occasion. I determined that it was in our best interest to eliminate him on the spot. Surprised you? In what way? His magic prowess and abilities are beyond normal. If left on his own for a few more years, that child will pose a major threat to us. He grows even more powerful daily, and that makes him unpredictable and dangerous. Liliana said, now frowning a little. I see. How far is his current growth? He should currently still possess a white mana core grade. However,
He has cast multiple spells at once that includes different elements simultaneously. That's impossible, the man on the other end exclaimed. I wouldn't have believed it if I didn't see it myself. He was also able to combine his basic spells to create an intermediate level lightning magic.
Lightning magic?
That's one of the most difficult aspects of elemental magic, and you're telling me he pulled off an intermediate level one?
Yes.
Liliana aptly replied. It appeared her employer was just as bewildered as her. This gave her enough justification for her actions.
You are right.
His growth is indeed scary. I understand your actions. Still, it was a bit risky, don't you think?
What can I say?
It was a good opportunity, and a nice excuse to kill the target. If it meant completing the mission and making it look like an accident, then I had to take it.
For a brief moment, there was silence.
Then, the crystal hummed a little and the voice of whoever was on the other end resumed his speech.
And? How did it turn out?
Did you succeed? Liliana gritted her teeth and clenched her fist a little.
No, I did not.
The pesky tutor and mother interrupted everything. It was a close call though.
You fool.
You took such a huge risk and didn't even get the job done. The strange man's voice rose a little in annoyance. There's no need for concern. It was dismissed as an accident, and no suspicion fell on me. Liliana responded instantly.
She was a professional.
Of course, she knew the appropriate time to take action and also how to plan ahead so that in an unlikely situation where her plan failed, she could escape any blame. I see, then I won't question you any further on the matter. However, you do remember what your mission still is, don't you? The man's voice had calmed down now. Of course, I am to integrate myself very deeply into his family, carefully watch over his growth, and then assassinate the target, when the time is ripe, Liliana said, as though reciting a rhyme. It appears there will need to be a change of plans then. From your statement, I take it the target won the bet with his tutor and will now be heading to the academy, correct?
Correct. TCH. That can't happen.
I had hoped there would be more time, but it can't be helped. A broad smile formed on Liliana's face as she knew what would come next from her employer's mouth. Your mission has been altered. The execution date has been shortened. You are to kill the target before he leaves for the academy. Use whatever means necessary. Her lips curled, displaying a sadistic grin. The whites of Liliana's teeth were openly shown as her eyes expressed eagerness to complete the mission. Understood, she said, licking her lips. After such a long time playing maid, it's finally time to kill. I've been itching for this for so long. Now then, I suppose it's time to dash. Before her employer could conclude his statement, Liliana heard sounds of incoming footsteps and quickly deactivated her communication tool. Hiding it within her maid outfit, she looked to see who it was, feigning surprise. And to her genuine surprise, the one who appeared was none other than her target himself, the young Master Jared.
The present.
I heard it all, Liliana, if that's even your real name. I smiled, watching the maid's drooped head slowly rise. That's too bad then, her voice sounded, slowly morphing from the kind and gentle tone she was using to a more twisted one. She lifted her head. Adi smiled obsessively at me, widening her eyes to make a sick expression. I was going to make your death as sweet and painless as possible since you have been such a nice kid. But it appears I'll have to change my plans. Liliana licked her lips.
Who was she kidding?
This was probably more preferable to her, since she could kill me in the most gruesome way allowed by her mission. I know her type, and they are all crazy. Liliana, who was taking steps back in retreat, now slowly started advancing toward me. As she did so, I took slow steps backward too. Obviously, I didn't want her any close to me. You're not as nice as I thought, Jared. Sneaking up on people, overhearing them, teasing this kind made with wine and threats, and now running away from me.
How mean you are, young master. I'm truly hurt, she said in a mocking tone.
Her intense gaze told me otherwise though. She was clearly enjoying the thrill.
Haha, is that so?
I answered, showing a little nervousness.
You fool.
You should have just kept quiet about the whole thing. If you had done that, instead of acting all cocky and running your mouth, then maybe you could live to see the night.
Okay, that was too much. I couldn't hold it in anymore. Hee ha ha ha.
I bust out laughing, halting my backward movement. My sudden reaction to her words puzzled Liliana as she stared at me with surprise. What's so funny, brat? You're going to die now, you know. She gave a smile, most likely wondering if I had gone insane from the idea of losing my life at such a young age.
Oh no, it's not that.
It's just, you said something funny just now, I said, still chuckling. My amusement was clearly not funny to Liliana, as she gave me a deep glare, emitting bloodlust. I endured the murderous aura she gave off, ceasing my laughter instantly. "What are you talking about?" she asked, her widened eyes staring at me condescendingly. My lips curled in a wide grin as I defiantly looked into the maid, now turned assassin's eyes. "It's funny that you think I merely stumbled on your conversation with that employer of yours." Upon hearing this, Liliana froze in her approach to me and stared suspiciously. "What the hell are you saying?" she asked with an intimidating tone. "It's so simple, really. I have been watching you for some time, Liliana. Ever since the party started, no, even before then. You were always a suspect in my book." My words were already pissing her off, I could see it. She clenched her teeth and glared at me. "I've had enough of your nonsense. You're just stalling for time, so it's best you just die right now." Making her move to rush and kill me off, Liliana strengthened her legs. Judging from the cracks that appeared on the ground, she was building up phenomenal speed that would be enough to kill me off before I could manage a reaction. "Just die." As I heard this, my already wide grin grew wider. Whoosh! She dashed toward me, blending with the wind as a needle appeared on her finger to deal a fatal hit to me. Unfortunately for my assassin though, it was the end of the line. Her body suddenly stopped moving, mere inches from me. The needle she stretched toward me was a close distance from piercing my skin. It was a good thing she had stopped. What is this?" the maid asked, suddenly feeling a strange sensation course through her. "It's about time. It appears my calculations were spot on," I muttered, moving from her front and to the side. "I can't move," she stuttered, even struggling to speak. Her eyes glared hatefully at me, with both suspicion and a hint of fear. "Of course. And that's a good thing. I would be dead otherwise," I answered. "Why you did this? What did you do?" Finally, she was asking the right question. Welp, now the answer to that is quite interesting. But first, let's put this away, I said, taking a hold of the needle she gripped tightly. Her fingers became loose at the touch of my hand, and without any resistance, I was able to obtain her killing instrument. "I'm certain you have more on you, but there's no need to strip you of any other weapon. You won't be able to use them, anyway," I stated. "Why you?" Liliana growled. "The answer can be found in the wine you just consumed," I answered, taking the cup she held in her second hand. I placed both needle and wineglass on the ground while staring at her amusedly. The expression of shock on her face was second to none. "That's right. I already drugged it. Did you really think I would confront you without a countermeasure? The chemicals in the wine induce paralysis, though they only take effect when rapid action is taken and your muscles are in a state of excitement. This would make the muscles tense up, causing the drugs to harden said muscles and ensure the one who consumed it becomes numb. How did you get such a drug? You didn't even know I was an assassin until moments ago. There's no way to procure a paralytic drug from anywhere around here." "I checked," Liliana said, still not believing my words. "You're right. There's no way to get a paralytic drug around. Plus, with my age and the constant supervision of everyone around, it's not like I can make shady deals to obtain a drug. That's why I didn't get it. The drug that's currently taking effect within you. I made it." My voice rang in her ears as I condescendingly smiled at her. Impossible." She spat in disdain. "It's true though. It took some time, but the efforts were well worth it," I grinned. But, that is, you couldn't," Liliana still failed to grasp what I was getting at. "And there's one final thing you're wrong about. Your plans to assassinate me, I've known about it for some time now. You and your employer both played directly into my hands." A dark gleam showed in my eyes. No matter how hard I thought of it, no matter the research I made to correct my errors, I still couldn't see how my lightning spell could have malfunctioned and caused such a disaster. It was only meant to be an intermediate spell. I calculated everything. The terrain, the energy consumption, the efficiency and speed, the power. It shouldn't have gone berserk like that. My mind rang. I went back to the drawing board to be certain, and I still ended up with the same conclusion. And that was because I had not failed in my lightning spell. I never had. For a scholar like me to make such a fundamental error in something as little as an intermediate spell was absurd, to begin with. Therefore, if I had not made a mistake, there was only one option left. Sabotage. Someone interfered with the lightning spell and intentionally caused that havoc, I concluded. But why would they do such a thing and risk my life? Well, the answer was something I was very familiar with. Whoever the culprit was, they intended to kill me. It looks like I was a little careless. I didn't think they would make their move yet.
I smiled to myself. After I was nearly killed by an assassin at merely a few days old, I was barely saved by the little magic cast in my desperate state. Since then, I hadn't forgotten for a second that there were some people out there who were after my life. My parents took active stances and conducted a thorough investigation, even laying off some staff that they deemed suspects, and were simply grateful for the miracle that saved their child. How lax, I thought to myself, wondering why they never bothered to investigate further. Realizing that no one around me was competent enough to ensure my safety, I took matters into my hands. Ever since I was a child, I analyzed the assassination attempt, the motives behind it, and tried reading into whoever the malefactor was. About 5 years ago, my mother employed a new set of staff, since laying off so many people at once put a strain on the remaining members of our household. This was when the fun truly began. My parents laying off our servants must have also been part of the mastermind's plan, since they would ultimately need to find new workers. With the matter of my assassination dying off, there was bound to be a lowered guard on the part of my parents. Of course, they only selected trustworthy individuals to work as maids, but it wasn't impossible for the enemy to blend into the new batch of servants. I made sure to memorize the faces, names, and identities of every new member of our household. I also took deep cognizance of their positions within the house. Of the several who were employed, my suspicion fell on 3. One was a tutor of mine who taught me basic ethics and manners. He was way too nice and forgiving, so I assumed he had ulterior motives. Plus, he had such a sensitive role in my life. The proximity was frightening. The second was a cook. He was added to the chefs responsible for the meals to be eaten by my mother and me. That was also quite a sensitive role. Finally, my last suspect was Liliana. She was merely a cleaning maid. Her role was not too conspicuous, and her proximity to me and my mother was fairly average. However, that was exactly what made her suspicious. She doesn't stand out, she never gets into any trouble, and everyone around her likes her. She was often flustered when I spoke to her, clumsy in duties as a result of her shy nature, and was the most subservient and sweetest servant in the house, with no flaws at all. However, those charms couldn't fool me. She's merely acting flustered to cover up her inexperience in her maid duties. She acts nice and aims for perfection because she must be a professional at pretense. Her face and body are the very definitions of beauty. It's questionable how someone like her became a maid, to begin with. Men would have taken her as their wife long ago, and it wouldn't be difficult finding a suitor with her personality. Even if he's a lowly noble, her life would be far better than this. Of course, I showed no bias and investigated every one of my suspects to the most of my abilities. Whenever I wasn't training with Alphonse or engaged in my personal activities, I made sure to analyze their movements and mannerisms. Using the elimination game, I struck them out one at a time. My etiquette teacher left after I was done with my training, not making any move on me. This left only the Jez, the cook, and Liliana, the cleaning maid. What made Liliana the prime suspect, and my assassin, was that she gave herself away during my last match with Alphonse. The lightning strike incident, where almost all the servants gathered to watch. The servants with exception to the personal cooks who were tasked with preparing our meals so we wouldn't be hungry after my fight with Alphonse was over. Jez was in the kitchen, and since I kept close tabs on him, I was certain he didn't witness my fight with Alphonse. The only one among my prime suspects who did was Liliana. She's the next assassin. I smiled. However, discovering someone is a killer, and turning the tables on them are two different things entirely. Her record is flawless, so there's no real evidence that she's an assassin. Even if I were to report her to my mum, without any evidence, it would just be dismissed. Annabelle would probably think I didn't like Liliana or something, and since my mother was so kind, she wouldn't throw a kind girl like her out of our household. Plus, I'm still only a child. There's a limit to how credible I am. Using this rationale, I realized that I needed to take matters into my hands. However, even that posed another problem. Liliana is a magic user, and judging from the fact that she was able to interfere with my spell, it means she must be a high-level one. During magic training with Alphonse, the magic sensors are deactivated, since magic would be used in the courtyard. All the spectating servants were in the courtyard's borders, so if one of them used magic, no alarm would go off. It was a perfect stage. I have to admit, I was careless. I didn't foresee them making a move back then. But with the benefit of hindsight, it all makes sense. With my current magic power, directly facing a very skilled magic user who was intent on killing me would be very risky and suicidal. I wasn't going to take any chances. Fortunately, the whole disaster brought a solution to my grasp. Alphonse's use of herbs to cure my mom of her mana shock. That's it. I beamed.
Alphonse left the next day after the incident, giving me the recipe for the mana shock cure. I also went to the library and took several books on herbs and their uses, spending some time in our family's greenhouse, and familiarized myself with the wonders of nature. It took me 5 days, but I finally figured out the perfect concoction to use. It left no traces, was perfectly odorless, tasteless, and would get the job done. Of course, I tweaked the effects a little to ensure the herbs produced the results I wanted. They're all comprised of chemicals, and ultimately, it's the chemicals that are needed to complete the job. Using distillation techniques, I separated the unnecessary parts of the herbs and relied solely on the chemical extracts to produce my end result. With this, there was only one thing left to do: wait for the appointed time, and execute the mission. The party was more perfect than I could have imagined. It made everything so much easier, and I was extremely happy about Annabelle's thoughtlessness, though I showed the opposite. With so many people present, it posed the perfect opportunity for the deed to be done. Unfortunately, my mother dragged me along to greet the guests, taking away any free time I had to execute my plans. It wasn't all bad though, since by mingling, I could still keep tabs on Liliana. As the party furthered, I noticed that our dear maid was displaying subtle, yet suspicious signs and would soon leave the party. There was no way I could miss this chance. I began to express exhaustion and moved sluggishly while making my facial expression appear tired. Of course, my mom, being who she was, noticed this in no time. Annabelle was too considerate for her own good, and there was no way she would let me keep greeting people when I was tired. Let's meet up in 5 minutes to resume the greetings. Annabelle smiled at me. I was glad the plan worked well, spotting that Liliana was already exiting through the secret path. Taking 2 glasses of wine, which I deemed fit for the potion I made, I took my leave from the party as well. On my way, I drugged the appropriate wine glass and made my way to the inconspicuous part of the backyard garden where Liliana had decided to communicate with her employer. It seemed like she was only talking to herself, but I knew better. A grin formed on my face as I listened in to their conversation. As I overheard them, I went over what I learned in the past week. Liliana only spoke to her employer once in a while. After her failed attempts at assassinating me, I knew she would try speaking to him as soon as possible. However, if she did so, it was sure that Liliana would be ordered to speed up the assassination and would kill me before I completed the drug I was in the process of making. Therefore, the perfect solution for that was the consequences brought about by Annabelle's mana shock. The entire household became busy, and patrols were held more often. With security and surveillance now tighter than ever, Liliana couldn't speak to her boss at all. The preparations for my party were also something that consumed everyone's time. With the maids being busier than usual, Liliana hardly had a moment to herself. It only made sense that my farewell party was the perfect moment for her to sneak out and talk to whoever was in charge. Upon hearing enough of their conversation, I was happy that the mastermind was indeed what I predicted. Okay, that's enough. I don't have all day, I reasoned, feigning footsteps. This caught Liliana's attention, bringing us to the situation we found ourselves in now. Do you understand now? I asked, smiling playfully at the petrified young lady. Her eyes bulged in shock as she absorbed everything I told her. You thought of all that? Her lips moved slowly. Of course, a mere child couldn't think so far ahead and plan things so meticulously. I relied on this fact in the execution of my plans. Even if the drug was undetectable, it wasn't completely so. If Liliana, as an assassin, was wary of me, I was certain she could be able to figure out my intentions to poison her. However, since I was a child, she let her guard down. She gratefully took the wine and swallowed it in such a refined way, confirming my suspicions once again that she was no mere maid. So, any further questions? I asked, leaning close to Liliana's face. With her glare and my grin directly opposite each other, it was checkmate. You brat, Liliana muttered, straining her voice. It was no use, yet the captured woman still seemed not have given in to the situation. Suddenly, I saw her face stretch and her lips curl up in a disgusting grin. Her eyes widened as she gave me a distorted evil grin. What the dash? I exclaimed, noticing something strange about her. I instantly sensed danger and leaped away from her body, suddenly feeling a great amount of pressure well up within her. Vumum. The tension in the atmosphere suddenly shifted and an ominous aura started leaking out of Liliana. The paralyzed body of hers slowly began moving, and before I knew it, she stood upright, now flexing her hands and looking at me. The fierce expression on her face made me gulp, and the intense pressure she emitted caused a few beads of sweat to appear on my cheeks and forehead. You little shit, you got too cocky, she said, cracking her stiff neck. Somehow she had gained the ability to move, despite the drug I gave her. This situation was the worst possible outcome, something that guaranteed a total disadvantage for someone like me who wanted to avoid a direct confrontation, to begin with. You're one hell of a smart bastard, I'll give you that. I didn't think you planned that far ahead and played me for a fool, she began speaking, digging her hands into her maid uniform to bring out several more needles from within it. However, it seems you've overlooked one simple factor. Magic. Her demented grin grew wider. Instantly, her body became coated with mana, shining in a faint color in the darkness that surrounded us. Why are you using magic? The alarms will be sure to dash, I said, showing nervousness.
Don't bother.
No one will be coming to your aid and no alarm will be set off. Liliana stated, clearly enjoying how my eyes darted all around me. What did you do? I burst out, glaring at the devilish assassin. You really didn't think this through, did you? I was using magic to communicate with my employer, yet the magic detector never picked up the mana being used to transmit our sounds.
She smiled.
My eyes bulged as more sweat ran down my cheeks. That's right. For a few minutes, I can disable the magic detector with a counter-magic tool, a jammer to be precise. She replied, bringing out a tiny object from her maid outfit. Just how many things does she have hidden underneath that garment? My mind rang. It's a good thing you blabbed away like a fool while I slowly used my magic to cure myself of the paralytic effects of the drug you gave me, undoing its effects, Liliana remarked. My body still feels weak, and my nerves aren't in their top form, but with enhancement magic, that poses no problem. It appears your plan has failed, you lose. Apparently, it wasn't checkmate. Was I being in too much of a hurry? Did I rush things too much? Had I underestimated my opponent? Liliana began advancing slowly, filling the needles she had with magic. This caused the tiny sharp spikes of death to glow light blue. You had me flustered for a second, but this is truly the end. I'll wrap things up quickly since I can't use the jammer for very long.
It's a shame.
I really would have enjoyed making you suffer. With this final statement, and a cruel smile clearly written on her face, Liliana lunged at me, having 3 needles on each hand, interlocked between her fingers. A single hit would prove fatal since she was targeting compromising spots in my body. I'm too slow to dodge her enhanced movements. The magically strengthened needles will easily tear through my skin like butter and pierce even my most inner recesses. As her pace quickened and dust flew from the contact her feet made with the ground, it appeared as though I neared my death. I should have known that she would be able to use magic. Since Liliana was able to interfere with my lightning magic, she had to be a skilled mage. Using healing magic and enhancements were not beyond her.
Now die, brat.
She yelled excitedly. If only I had thought of it. I would have made a countermeasure. Why didn't I think of a scenario like this? A smile formed on my face as I closed my eyes. It looks like this is the end. Liliana's mana slowly faded the closer she got to me, and her enhanced body suddenly trembled, causing it to grow stiff once again. The woman's eyes bulged as she noticed the changes that were occurring, and without her volition, her body came to an abrupt halt. I opened my eyes to find her needles once again close to my body, merely inches apart. Her body trembled, and it was clear the young lady had lost control. She suddenly lost her ability to speak, and her face depicted severe pain and shock. My smile grew wider and the scared, shocked and flustered look I had feigned vanished. Instead, my expression was replaced with a condescending one. With a stoic face and dead, cold eyes, I stared at the suffering woman. Her eyes depicted that she had tons of questions, which was totally understandable. Anyone who witnessed the scene would be confused. You stalled for time by letting me waste my time explaining the details of my plans to you. You healed yourself with magic and enhanced your body so it would be in an optimal state. You killed me and completed your mission. The end, I mumbled, walking past her while observing her frozen body. She seemed to be trying to say something, struggling to form words, but it was of no use. At least, that was how it was supposed to go.
Right, Liliana.
However, this sudden situation has occurred, and you have no idea what has happened. I circled the poor maid, like a shark revolving around its prey, finally arriving once again in front of her. You must be utterly confused right now. I should enlighten you, shouldn't I? You must be utterly confused right now. I should enlighten you, shouldn't I? I said, stroking Liliana's cheeks lightly as I watched her glare stiffen, relax, and stiffen once more. The assassin had made 2 errors in her judgment. They both stemmed from the fact that once again, she underestimated me.
Who could blame her?
I was but a trifling child. The events that had occurred thus far were surprising enough. She was certain to think that was the limit of my capabilities. Unfortunately for the poor miss, she was wrong. You were clever, young lady, stalling for time while circulating your mana throughout your body. A most impressive strategy. It's too bad you failed to notice, I began calmly. She should have suspected that it was unlike me, someone so meticulous, to reveal my plans in such details. I was being a chatterbox and conveniently bought her enough time to fully utilize magic. The reason for that was simple. I was stalling for time too. I smiled devilishly. Her eyes bulged, but she couldn't make any other reactions or expressions. Her body still throbbed painfully, and I knew why. As for the second error in judgment she made, or rather, the oversight she assumed on my part, was concerning her use of magic. Liliana was a skilled mage to have been able to nearly kill me with my own spell at first glance. She must have calculated the technique and amplified it accordingly to give her the results she required. A truly frightening woman. Why didn't I think of the fact that she could easily use magic to free herself from my paralysis and turn the tables in moments? The answer was simple. I did. Did you really think I wouldn't notice the circulation of your mana? Or did you think I didn't predict the outcome where you would use magic? In fact, I counted on it. I said, taking a few steps back while looking at the sky. I inhaled slowly, enjoying the night breeze. Now that things had progressed so far, there was no need to be tense anymore. Liliana, or whatever your name is, do you know what is happening to you right now? I asked, narrowing my gaze as I still observed the bright streaks of stars in the sky. Suddenly, I felt a burst of mana surge from the assassin. This made me lower my gaze, once again looking at her. The brilliant surge of mana covered her whole body, causing her to move once more. Her vengeful eyes were locked onto mine, full of hatred toward me for shaming her to this state. You, how dare you? Forget the contract, this is personal now. I'll make sure to rip you to shreds. She growled, increasing the tempo of her mana. Her body now had an ominous blue glow as she clenched her fist. A single blow would tear my body apart, I was well aware. Liliana was very strong. However, I wouldn't do that if I were you, I slowly remarked. Ignoring my words, Liliana made to move at me, but froze once again. This time it wasn't just tremblings that shook her. Aarg. Gah. Gah. She screamed out in pain, stiffly moving her hands to touch her body, and then her neck. You Urk. Ah. Arg. Liliana's voice slowly faded and her body slowed down, but her lips moved nonetheless. Even with her voice gone, they displayed pain unimaginable. Her eyes bulged, nearly out of their sockets, and her body trembled violently, swerving uncontrollably. I watched the erratic dance Liliana displayed before me, leaping a little away from her so I could watch everything from a distance. This is? Her voice returned, but was quickly drowned in screams of pain and faded again. That's right, I proceeded to complete her words. It's mana shock, and an extreme one at that. Her body trembled more violently as she shrieked, swerving more uncontrollably. Veins began showing on her skin, as though wanting to pop out of her body, and her formerly clear and flawless skin began paling up and showing signs of emaciation. Impossible, how can this be? I moved closer to her, watching as her body danced, freezing at a certain moment, then continuing its frenzied state. It is. I made it possible, with the formula Alphonse gave me. I said, mercilessly gazing upon Liliana's suffering state. In medical treatment, there are concepts known as conflicting effects. This occurs when a deadly condition in the body is combated by another equally deadly one. Poisons are often cured with another type of poison. Both neutralize each other and cancel out their effects. It's the same with the mana shock cure, I revealed. I had no idea why this hadn't been discovered yet, but by altering the dosage slightly, I extracted the chemicals found within the cure ingredients, amplifying their effects. The results were as I suspected. I can now induce mana shock, and you're my first target. Although, this was no ordinary condition. Unlike the case with my mother, Liliana suffered one even worse. By increasing the dosage to a frightening degree, I made sure that the consequences for suffering my induced mana shock would be death. The moment you decided to use magic against me, it was all over. I merely waited until the effects of the mana shock solution had spread across your body and seeped into your mana core. The more you use your magic, the more complicated it gets for you. I shook my head. So tell me, Liliana, just how much magic have you used? The answer was simple. Gark. She coughed violently. Her eyes were turning bright red, the color of blood. Her body kept shriveling while her skin became even paler. Please don't do this, I heard her whisper. At this point, The assassin was struggling to breathe. I watched her pitiful state, not flinching from where I stood. Don't you want to know who the mastermind is? I can tell you, so please spare my life.
Oh?
So she's pleading for her life now. My mind rang in a little surprise. Moving closer to her stiff body, which was too weak to make any more movement, my face drew closer to hers, directly staring into her red and bulging eyes. No. My mother must have cast the strongest defensive spell she could muster, an advanced tier barrier, to contain the lightning blast and protect me. She had acted on instinct, not caution, and paid the price with the recoil of mana backlash. But the lightning wasn't that overwhelming, I protested weakly. An intermediate barrier could have absorbed the charge. You didn't need to use a high-tier spell. Even with all her eccentricities, I knew Annabelle wasn't lacking in magical knowledge. She understood elemental reactions, counterbalances, asterisk everything. Asterisk, so why? Why would she risk so much when simpler solutions existed? Why would she? I wasn't thinking, Jared, my mother whispered, her voice rasping with strain. You were in danger. I had to protect you, no matter what. She coughed violently, and I watched her body tremble. Her skin was pale, her breath shaky. There was no mistaking it now, she was in serious condition. She won't die, but she'll be bedridden for a while. My thoughts fragmented. Logic spiraled into chaos. I thought I had everything planned, every detail calculated. But now? Still thinking about magic, aren't you? Alphonse's voice shattered the haze in my mind, loud and accusing. Anger flared in me. What now? I was already beating myself up. What more did he want? I raised my eyes to glare at him, but stopped short. Alphonse was crying. The man who moments ago had slapped me with fire in his eyes was now fighting back tears. Look at your mother, Jared. Look around you, what do you see? I turned my gaze around. Servants, maids, the staff, everyone was staring at me. Not with blame. Not with hatred. But with fear, concern. Worry. Not one of them cared about the scorched floor or ruined furniture. All eyes were on me. Do you get it now? Alphonse asked, voice thick with emotion. You almost got yourself killed. You nearly killed your mother. That blast could have swept away everyone here. And yet, his words weighed heavily on me. My chest tightened. Yet, despite it all, everyone is still worried about you. Your mother didn't hesitate for a moment. She risked everything to save you. And what are you doing? Still obsessing over your spellcraft? Still lost in theory while people around you suffer? Suddenly, something else struck me, something I had overlooked until now. He's injured. Blood seeped through Alphonse's shoulder. His robes were stained crimson, yet he stood tall, unwavering, focused entirely on me. A sharp ache pierced through me. My heart pounded, throbbing with guilt. My mother's weak smile. Alphonse's tears. The expressions of everyone around me. It all came crashing down. My voice trembled, and before I realized it, tears streamed down my face. It didn't matter how old my soul was or how many lifetimes of knowledge I carried. In this moment, I was just a child, lost, ashamed, and overwhelmed. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. My voice broke as I cried openly. I am so sorry, Heek. I sobbed uncontrollably, the words garbled, my pride crumbling to dust. My carefully constructed composure shattered completely. Without saying a word, Alphonse stepped forward and pulled me into a firm embrace. His large hands wrapped around my trembling shoulders. My mother, still weak, reached out and joined the embrace. And in that moment, we stood there, united. A family. Their warmth surrounded me, muffling the chaos in my mind. In that embrace, I felt the weight of my guilt slowly lift. I've been such a fool, making the same mistakes I once swore never to repeat. I smiled bitterly through my tears. In my previous life, I was surrounded by people like this. People who supported me, believed in me, carried me. I never became the great sage, Lewis Griffith, alone. And even now, after being given a second chance at life, I had once again chased power at the expense of everything else. That was my true mistake, not the spell. But forgetting the hearts that beat around mine. It's finally time. Jared, I'll miss you. As Annabelle's sweet sobs rang in my ears, I stared lovingly at my mother. Somehow, why did it feel as though I was the father and she was the daughter who didn't want me to leave or something? I gave her my usual charming smile, the best a 12-year-old could come up with, and reassured my mother. I'll be fine, Mom. I promise. Besides, this is for the best, my voice trailed. As soon as I said this, my expression stiffened a little. She had to admit this was the best alternative, not just for my growth as a magic user, but for my safety. To know the reason for that, one would have to backtrack to the discovery the servants made early this morning. After the party ended late in the night, and our guests left, I was escorted to my room in order to get enough rest for my journey the next day. My mother also went to her room to relax, since she had exerted herself a great deal to accommodate guests. The servants took care of everything, making sure the cleaning and disposal of wastes were expertly taken care of. Since I was still mulling over the incidents of what happened during the party, I couldn't sleep. My mind was working, and I was studying various ways to alter the original poison I concocted to create a more potent dosage and reduce its circulation time. I could hear slight whispers across the hallway, excited sounds of servants concerning the party we just had, as well as the luxurious foods they got to enjoy as a result of the party. Out of all the things I overheard while in my study, something stood out. Who knows where Liliana is? I haven't seen her all evening. I have a brief sigh and continued studying, realizing that the truth was bound to be revealed sooner or later. And as I rightly guessed, it didn't really take very long before the servants found Liliana's corpse where she died. It happened early in the morning, while they patrolled the area to ensure no single spot was overlooked. It was no understatement to say that everyone in the house was roused as a result of the loud shrieks brought about by the servants when they saw Liliana's shriveled-up body. I was told to remain in my room when the servants revealed the situation to my mom, but after insisting on seeing it for myself, my mother allowed me to witness the scene. When we saw her, she was like this. I don't know how it happened or what could have caused something like this, but The servants spoke, clear emotions obvious from the tone they used. My body twitched when I finally saw Liliana after leaving her to die the previous night. It was just as I thought. Her body was dried up till the bone, and her bloodshot eyes were nearly popped from their sockets. To say she was just an empty husk of flesh and bones would still not do the terrible sight justice. As soon as Annabelle saw this for herself, she regretted bringing me to the scene, but as it was too late, all she could do was cover my eyes and whisper comforting words to me. I found her words a little ironic, considering the fact that Liliana's killer was none other than her. After covering her body up, the servants took Liliana to the morgue after my mother cast preservation magic on the corpse and told them to add spices and preservatives to ensure the body would be in perfect condition until it was analyzed. While mana shock caused Liliana's death, no one was aware of that fact yet. They never even considered it. Why? Because no one thought Liliana could use magic, to begin with. Not even my mother. The maids and servants were employed from lineages incapable of magic, i.e. inepts. In the first instance, magic users wouldn't be working as maids when one considered it well. That was why Liliana's death was bizarre. The mystery remained unsolved even as I entered the special carriage prepared for me. I'll make sure to investigate it thoroughly, Jared. So, don't worry about me or this household, okay? Just be safe. Annabelle smiled at me. I could tell that hidden behind that smile was the anxiety of a worrying mother. She was most likely scared to death for my well-being since another incident of murder had occurred within the Leonard estate, something that was rarely heard of among high-ranking nobles. My heart ached a little for Annabelle, but this was for the best. The autopsy and magic investigation will ultimately reveal her death to be from mana shock as a result of the lingering traces of mana in her dead cells. Once that happened, Annabelle would slowly come to realize their ploy, and even though she won't understand why Liliana died without completing her mission to kill me, she'll be extra careful. The next time I return home, I'll be sure to find a much more impressive state of security. This way, Annabelle will be more motivated to protect herself. My thoughts trailed. Before I forget, Annabelle said, her expression depicting thoughts suddenly appearing in her head. She dipped her hand into her long robe and brought out a book from within it. It was dark brown, most likely made from good leather, and the parchments would also be high quality. Alphonse's gift came very late last night. You were already asleep, so I decided to wait till today, my mother said, smiling a little. Welp, I'm pretty sure I was still awake though, I mused. I would have given you earlier, but this whole thing happened, and then before I knew it, the carriage was ready for your departure and dash. If I left her to herself, Annabelle was going to keep rambling and there was no way I could have that. There were better things the both of us could be doing. I get it, Mom, thanks. I flashed a smile, proceeding to receive the book from Annabelle. Well, it appears I've kept you waiting long enough. You should go before I hog you even more for myself. Annabelle laughed. I laughed as well, and for a brief moment, we stared passionately and lovingly at each other. The bond between myself and this woman, even though it was only for 12 years, was one I would forever cherish. By Jared, my child. I love you. Embarrassing as it was, I pursed my lips and opened them, responding with the exact same words as my mom. "I love you too, Mom." And I absolutely meant it. The carriage suddenly started moving slowly as the coachman stirred the horses into motion. Jerked by the propulsion of the vehicle, my thoughts shook a little, and a question that had been puzzling me for years suddenly appeared. Bonds. Love. Relationship. So far, I had made so many, but the most bizarre one was still with my magic tutor, who was still a stranger to me. And so, as I slowly moved away from the loving gaze of my mother, curiosity got the best of me and I had to speak. Mom. My voice called out to Annabelle. Her eyes lit up in surprise, wondering what else I wanted to say. Who exactly is Alphonse? The burning question within me, and one of the few mysteries I had yet to uncover in all my life, was now laid bare before the one who knew the answer. Upon hearing my question, my mother made a spurting sound of laughter as she remained standing amusedly. To think you're just asking me this now. As the carriage drew further away, her voice grew fainter, replaced by the sounds of turning wheels and the clamping of horse hooves on the ground. Still, my eyes were fixated on Annabelle's face as she gave me the answer. My eyes bulged as soon as I read her lips and heard the faint whispers of the truth that was never told to me all this time. Alphonse was your grandfather and my own father, Annabelle said. She smiled lovingly at me, waving me goodbye. I was too stunned to reciprocate her energy, waving only in a stunned state. While her answer explained a lot of things, it caused even more questions. To think my own grandfather had been my tutor for so long, and I was left unaware. Mum calls him Alphonse. I called him that too. Other than the slight display of affection they displayed once in a while, I couldn't sense any kind of family bond. Still mumbling to myself, I looked at the book she had given me before I entered the carriage. Rubbing it slightly with my hand, I calmed myself. There had to be a reason for me not knowing of it. After I calmed down a little, I looked out the window and caught one final glimpse of Annabelle, as well as the few members of our household that saw me off. The rest of them were busy taking care of the mess that Liliana's death caused, as well as investigation if similar incidents had occurred in other areas. My farewell was not as exciting or emotional as expected, however. This much was enough. Soon, the manor began shrinking in size as I drifted further from it. Perspective made everything appear very little, and my mother vanished from sight. Smiling at myself, I retracted my head from the opening of the carriage window and gave sigh. Hugh. I've become quite emotional, Shrugging off the sentiments welling up within me, I refrained from taking unnecessary thoughts. The book, let's see what Alphonse's gift was, or should I call him grandfather now? I whispered. No, that would just feel too weird. Opening the brown leather book, I saw a letter on the first page. The envelope had a red seal affixed on it, making me slightly curious. Only nobles and distinguished families used such seals. If I remember correctly, Annabelle is from a very distinguished magic-based family. I suppose it's true that Alphonse is her father, I reasoned. I impatiently opened the envelope, curious about its contents. As expected, a letter was within. The parchment in my hands was made from a very exquisite material, and the texture was soft, as well as firm. I stretched it out so I could read the contents of the letter Alphonse sent. Looking through it, I smiled in nostalgia, reminded of my tutor. Underscore 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 underscore. Dear Jared, how have you been? I'm sure by now you're on your way to the academy, since my letter will arrive late. Knowing Annabelle, I'm sure she'll only give you in the morning, on your way to the academy. Sigh, that woman. I trust you've been well. It hasn't been very long since I left the Leonard household, but I already miss you and your mother. There are few things I wish to tell you, so make sure you read attentively. Firstly, my gift to you is a book which contains several mixes of drugs, concoctions and medicines. There are also poisons and harmful mixtures there, so be careful. You showed an interest in the formula for curing your mother's mana shock, and knowing you, it won't stop at that. To further assist in your research, I decided to give you this compilation of records that I made myself. I figured it would be better than just any old spell book. As for the second thing I have to reveal, it's something Annabelle might have addressed, but in case she hasn't, I should explain in length. Jared, I am the father of your mother, as well as your grandfather. It wasn't as though any of us intentionally tried hiding this fact from you, but you never asked. The reason you may not have noticed this is because of our family customs. Our relationships take on many forms, depending on achievement and circumstances. Annabelle once addressed me as father, and I called her daughter. However, that changed once she became a fully fledged magic user and got my recognition to be a fellow comrade in the art. That's why we now use our names to address each other. As for why I never addressed you as my grandson and didn't demand for you to treat me as a grandfather is because I was brought in as a tutor and had to act in such a manner. After your training elapsed, I recognized you as a fellow magic user, so there's no need for us to address ourselves in such a manner. It's funny how our family relationship never defined us throughout our stay together, and even after. If you take a good look at your name, Jared Leonard Alphonse Sereth, my name exists there. This is because my magic-oriented household's name is the Alphonse household, and my true name is Alphonse Gerald IV. We decided to hand over my daughter in marriage to your father as a result of an alliance between both households. As a symbol of our alliance, our family's name was incorporated into your family's name. I certainly hope this has answered some of the questions you may have concerning things. While I know all I have said may be too much for a child your age, I know you are a special child, Jared, and do not need to be treated like a normal boy. I certainly hope you act in a manner that makes both households you hail from proud. As a pupil who passed under my wing and as my beloved grandchild, I certainly hope to hear of your exploits in Ainslark. Take care of yourself, Jared. Tales of mysteries that have yet to be deciphered. Legends of beings that have long since existed and defy imagination. Of these many tales, one of them has always been embedded into the hearts of men. The Celestial War. In a world of magic and swords, the natural and the supernatural, there were bound to be concepts of gods and demons. Where there is light, there is bound to be darkness lurking about, and the existence of good births a notion of evil. And so, now lost to humanity and civility, far beyond the lands inhabited by beings of light, exists a kingdom of eternal darkness. The demon realm. In this world of the vilest creatures with the most depraved natures, something spectacular was occurring. It was a battle, which was between two creatures of darkness. The stage was set, the spectators were present, and the high seat was erected. With everyone watching and the two already standing on stage, there was only one thing the denizens expected. A fight. No signal was given before both creatures lunged at each other. Like shadows piercing through the night, their distorted bodies exchanged blows, moving fluidly according to the tempo of battle and clashing. This frenzied dance lasted for so long, yet none landed a solid blow on the other. They kept attacking and defending, and used all manners of abilities to achieve a stalemate. Swish. One of the fighters turned its limbs into blades, and started charging at the other fighter, desperate to win. If no action was taken by the latter, it could lose its life. However, it appeared that the one on the other end of the blade was faster than the shadow who was trying to attack first. The shadow dodged the fatal hit, and in an instant vanished, becoming one with darkness. Puzzlement filled the eyes of the assaulter, as it tried to figure out the location of its target. However, the moment it realized what was going on, it was too late. A large spike, big enough to tear anyone to pieces, while being sharp enough to rend even the toughest of materials, appeared from the ground, materializing from the shadows. Squish. It pierced the other dark being in the chest. The sudden force raised the wounded one high, and it was unable to do much except struggle and squirm as a result of the pain. The being's powerless struggle didn't last very long, as it turned into a shadow too, dissipating from the spike and materializing far away from danger. After reaching a considerable distance from the spike, it fell to its knees and clutched the wide hole that appeared in its chest. Grunts of pain were heard, and even though the wounded one tried its best to stifle it, it still leaked out, and from the posture they had, it was clear to everyone who watched that the one who landed the first hit was superior. Like clockwork, the successful one appeared, returning from the shadow where he had disappeared to. It walked towards the kneeling one, already assured of victory. After all, this match had one simple rule. In order not to waste the time of those who watched, the first to land a solid hit would be the winner. Following the rules of the bout, the champion had been decided. Now standing before the loser as the sole winner of their bout, the shadowy figure gave a very condescending look to the one beneath him. I win, you lose. Just as I told you before this all began. If the loser had any teeth, it would have definitely gritted them. Unfortunately, for beings of their race, such parts of the body didn't exist. The kneeling one could only clench its fist in anger due to its powerlessness, and realizing the loss and shame he had incurred. I can still. The loser could not complete the statement though. Even it was aware of its weakness, and how much more powerful the adversary was. That is enough. A voice echoed from the highly esteemed seat of the most revered among those who watched. 7 seats were present there, indicating the highest members of the Society of Darkness where the beings all resided. The highest seat,
the one in the middle was unoccupied. The supreme ruler of the realm of darkness was absent during such an occasion. However, no one thought it to be strange. No one could question the Demon King, after all. There was one other empty seat. It was the seat to the far left, the throne which both shadow beings currently fought for. As for the voice that interrupted the fight, it belonged to none other than the second in command of the forces within the demon realm. The result of the battle is set. The next sixth seat has been decided. A hushed silence spread across the open arena. None of the spectators could move or even utter a single word. This was a sacred moment, one that could not be tainted by the slightest bit of sound other than by the one who would make the declaration. Con. You are hereby stripped of your role as a demon lord. From now henceforth, the title Noir of Shadows shall be passed to the one who has bested you. He is now the new ruler of the shadow demon race, Noir of the 6 demon lords. Con, the defeated fighter, couldn't say a single word. He had lost, and in such a cruel world, it was only natural for the weaker one to lose everything to the strong. But to think that the person he lost to was none other than his previous subordinate and right-hand man. Con's fury, bitterness, and shame knew no bounds. Thus, the ceremony and rite of succession shall now begin. The demon lords who were seated rose from their thrones, and the spectators all instantly removed themselves from their seats and bowed in homage to the existing demon lords, and the new one who would now be crowned soon. The rite began, and the time finally elapsed. Finally, it was done. At this point, Con was excused, cast out of the sight of everyone, and the attention of the masses was on their new leader. All hail Kiran, Noir of Shadows. The deafening cry of the leader of the demon lords echoed throughout the vast lands. In response, everyone who heard, whether spectators around the arena or denizens who were in their abode, all bowed and paid homage. Hail! 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 All hail our demon lord, Noir of Shadows. The voices of the demons roared, and all of them were paying homage and reverence to the victor. At least all except Con, the loser. The former demon lord narrowed his eyes, tightened his fist, and swore to himself on that very occasion. Even as he heard the deafening cries and hails of his successor, he could not accept it. I swear. I shall regain my position as demon lord, no matter the cost. At this point, there was no way to do that. However, no matter how long it took and what he needed to do to earn it, Con was ready. To kill, to destroy, to plunder and to wage war. If he could bring back an achievement great enough to be recognized by everyone, including his lord and master, the Demon King, then he would regain his position. In a land full of darkness and strife, there was hardly any hope for ambition. All he had left was shame and reproach. To achieve his goals, Con's eyes went beyond the dark plains that surrounded him and saw what lay behind the horizons. Light. If he couldn't achieve his ambitions in a land of evil and chaos, devoid of hope, he would find his answer in the very place where hope resided. A place where denizens of chaos were scorned, hated, but most especially feared. I will win, no matter what it takes. It's finally time, Jared. I'll miss you. As Annabelle's sweet sobs rang in my ears, I stared lovingly at my mother. Why did it feel as though I was the father and she was the child who didn't want me to leave or something? I gave her my usual charming smile, the best a 12-year-old could come up with, and reassured my mother. I'll be fine, Mom. I promise. Besides, this is for the best. My voice trailed. As soon as I said this, my expression stiffened a little. She had to admit that this was the best alternative, not just for my growth as a magic user, but for my safety as well. To know the reason for that, one would have to backtrack to the discovery the servants made early this morning. After the party ended late in the night, and our guests left, I was escorted to my room in order to get enough rest for my journey the next day. My mother also went to her room to relax, since she had exerted herself a great deal to accommodate the guests. The servants took care of everything, making sure the cleaning and disposal of wastes were expertly taken care of. Since I was still mulling over the incidents of what happened during the party, I couldn't sleep. My brain was working overtime, and I was studying various ways to alter the original poison I concocted so that I could create a more potent dosage and reduce its circulation time. I could hear slight whispers across the hallway, the excited murmurings of the servants discussing the party we just had, as well as the luxurious food they got to enjoy as a result of the party. Out of all the things I overheard while in my study, something stood out. Does anyone know where Liliana is? I haven't seen her all evening. I let out a brief sigh and continued studying, realizing that the truth was bound to be revealed sooner or later. And as I rightly predicted, it didn't take very long before the servants found Liliana's corpse. It happened early in the morning, while they patrolled the area to ensure that no single spot was overlooked when cleaning.
It was no understatement to say that everyone in the house was roused as a result of the loud shrieks of the servants when they saw Liliana's shriveled-up body. I was told to remain in my room when the servants revealed the situation to my mom, but after insisting on seeing it for myself, my mother allowed me to witness the scene. When we saw her, she was like this. I don't know how it happened or what could have caused something like this, but The servants spoke, the distress clear in their voices. My body twitched when I finally saw Liliana after leaving her to die the previous night. It was just as I'd thought. Her body was dried up to the bone, and her bloodshot eyes were nearly popped from their sockets. To say she was just an empty husk of flesh and bones would still not do the terrible sight justice. As soon as Annabelle saw this for herself, she regretted bringing me to the scene, but as it was too late, all she could do was cover my eyes and whisper comforting words to me. I found her words a little ironic, considering the fact that Liliana's killer was none other than me. After covering up her body, the servants took Liliana to the morgue after my mother cast a preservation magic on the corpse and told them to add spices and preservatives to ensure that the body would be in perfect condition until it was analyzed. While it was mana shock that caused Liliana's death, no one was aware of that fact yet. They never even considered it. Why? Because no one thought Liliana could use magic, to begin with. Not even my mother. The maids and servants that were employed were from lineages incapable of magic, i.e. inepts. In the first instance, magic users don't usually work as maids when one thinks about it. That was why Liliana's death was bizarre. The mystery behind it was still unsolved even as I entered the special carriage prepared for me. I'll make sure to investigate it thoroughly, Jared. So, don't worry about me or this household, okay? Just be safe. Annabelle smiled at me. I could tell that hidden behind that smile was the anxiety of a worrying mother. She was most likely scared to death for my well-being since another incident of murder had occurred within the Leonard estate, something that was rarely heard of among high-ranking nobles. My heart ached a little for Annabelle, but this was for the best. The autopsy and magic investigation will ultimately reveal her death to be from mana shock as a result of the lingering traces of mana in her dead cells. Once that happened, Annabelle would slowly come to realize their ploy, and even though she won't understand why Liliana died without completing her mission to kill me, she'll become extra careful. The next time I return home, I'll be sure to find a more impressive state of security. This way, Annabelle will be more motivated to protect herself. My thoughts trailed. Before I forget. Annabelle said, with her expression depicting that a thought had suddenly appeared in her head. She dipped her hand into her long robe and brought out a book from within it. It was dark brown and most likely made from quality leather. The parchment also seemed to be of high quality. Alphonse's gift came very late last night. You were already asleep, so I decided to wait until today. My mother said, smiling a little. Welp, I'm pretty sure I was still awake though. I mused. I would have given it to you earlier, but this whole thing happened, and then before I knew it, the carriage was ready for your departure and dash. If I had left her alone, Annabelle would have kept on rambling and there was no way I could have that. There were better things the both of us could be doing. I get it, Mom, thanks. I flashed her a smile, and proceeded to collect the book from her hands. Well, it appears I've kept you waiting long enough. You should go before I hog you even more to myself. Annabelle laughed. I laughed as well, and for a brief moment, we stared passionately and lovingly at each other. The bond between me and this woman, even though it was only for 12 years, was one I would forever cherish. Bye, Jared, my child. I love you. Embarrassing as it was, I pursed my lips and opened them, responding with the exact same words as my mom. I love you too, Mom. And I absolutely meant it. The carriage then started to move slowly as the coachman stirred the horses into motion. Jerked by the sudden increase in speed of the vehicle, my thoughts shook a little, and a question that had been puzzling me for years suddenly appeared. Bonds. Love. Relationship. So far, I had formed so many bonds, but the most bizarre one is the one I have with my magic tutor, who is still a stranger to me. And so, as I slowly moved away from the loving gaze of my mother, curiosity got the best of me and I just had to speak. Mom. My voice called out to Annabelle. Her eyes lit up in surprise, wondering what else I wanted to say. Who exactly is Alphonse? The burning question within me, and one of the few mysteries I had yet to uncover in all my life, was now laid bare before the one who knew the answer. Upon hearing my question, my mother made a choking sound of laughter as she stood there staring at me amusedly. To think that you're just asking me this now. As the carriage drew further away, her voice grew fainter and was replaced by the sound of turning wheels and the clamping of horse hooves on the ground. Still, my eyes were fixated on Annabelle's face as she gave me the answer. My eyes bulged as soon as I read her lips, and my brain tried to wrap itself around the truth that had been hidden from me all this time.
Alphonse is
Your grandfather, and my own father. A shocking discovery.
Magecrafter.